So hands up if you've flown easyJet. Okay, good. So in terms of scale, to give you a little bit of an idea, we were founded in 1995, and we were founded on the premise of making travel easy and affordable. The original flight was from Luton to Glasgow, £29.99, which at the time was the same price as a pair of jeans. We've grown to become Europe's largest and leading airline. We've got 132 airports, 31 countries, 802 routes across the continent. We employ 3,000 pilots, 6,000 crew, and about 14,000 people altogether. Interestingly, we work with 32 employee representative bodies. And for those of you who are not into all of the ER stuff, that's a lot. So that's a lot of unions and a lot of time taken to talk to our employees. And we have a constant growth in our industry and a constant change in our industry, which gives us different types of challenges in terms of recruitment. So just to give you an idea about scale, let's talk about passenger numbers. Can everyone stand up, please? Yeah, working for your lunch, exactly. Yeah. Right, so sit down if you think we have less than 20 million passengers. One person, okay. Sit down if you think we have more than 90 million passengers. Not sure? Okay. Sit down if you think we have 30 million passengers or less. 40 million passengers or less. Okay. 60 million passengers or less. I'm playing a game with you. It's 80 million passengers is the number of total. So congratulations, those who are still standing up. Well done. So we're going to talk about how we do recruitment. In terms of the numbers, it's 3,000 roughly, so 2,500 cabin crew, around about 500 pilots, and of course some head office people as well. 85% of those are directly sourced. So we're going to talk about how we do it. We're going to talk about workforce planning. We're going to talk about using data and insight to build an agile approach. We're going to showcase our unique business culture. We're going to talk about building an employer brand in a social environment, and we're going to talk about driving our D&I agenda. The interesting thing about aviation is that it is really driven by global macroeconomic trends. So the key thing about whether people or not stay in business within aviation is fuel prices. And oil prices drive that level of cost for aviation. So when we see that the oil prices are going up, you see a lot of people falling out of the industry. And when oil prices go down, you see a lot of people staying in the industry because it's the key driver. So in terms of what we look at, we've got there, it's in a science and an art. I think one thing that we've realized across easyJet is that over the years, we know how many crew we'll need in any season. We know, for example, that every single plane that we fly requires a certain number of crew. We know that within certain bases, there are certain levels of attrition. So we look at a number of different things, some of which are more interesting than others. So sickness and attrition analysis, again, we know how much we turn over in each of the bases. So we know, looking at last year's data, how many people are likely to be sick, how many people are likely to leave, for example. But we also look at competitor trends. And the interesting thing about that is that sometimes that involves looking not only at our competitors this year, but looking at our competitors last year. So for example, if BA have done a huge recruitment drive last year, it's less likely that they're going to be doing a big recruitment drive this year. If, for example, Air France are starting a low-cost carrier, as they are, called June, then we know that in our French bases, we're going to see more attrition. Flexing the employment proposition, that's quite interesting. So that's about looking at our competitors in relatively real time and saying, what are they offering against what we're offering, and what effect is that going to have on our turnover and our attrition? So for example, in Germany, we looked at what Lufthansa were offering against our base in Tegel, and we found that they were offering, even though they were the kind of national flag carrier, permanent contracts on a higher base and against us, and we were on not permanent contracts, and we were not the national flag carrier. And if you're a German person looking for a job, you're going to go for the permanent one. So flexing that and having that ability to feed that directly back into the people who make those decisions around our cabin crew, our head of cabin services, and the ability to flex that employment proposition has made a crucial difference to us. And then in terms of real-time market intel, everybody who leaves the organization, and we're very lucky we don't have very high attrition, we get real-time intelligence from them. Where are you going? Why are you going? And we can build that in to make some trends. So we know that when we're losing people in Gatwick, we know to whom we are losing them. We know that when we're losing people in Bordeaux, we know where they're going and why they're going. So we can build that in along the season and actually change our assumptions as we do that. And then the final one, we talked a lot today about marketing approaches to recruitment. Pretty much everybody who's stood up here has talked about it. We've taken a similar approach, and we've actually segmented our bases. We learned very early on that not all of our bases are the same. So we noticed that there are some bases that we have to work incredibly hard to get our employer brand out there if we're, for example, not the national flag carrier of that country. And there are other bases, for example, in the north of England, where all we have to do is open the door a crack, and we see floods of applications in. So we segmented our bases into 3 different segments, and we have different levels of hold pools for each of our bases. So that, for example, where we know that we're going to struggle, for example, in Germany, in Portugal, we have 50% hold pools. And then for those where we're going to find it easy, we have no hold pool at all. And we don't invest that much of our advertising budget. We don't invest that much of our branding budget in that kind of activity. So segmenting our bases has enabled us to take a very focused approach to how we do it. So Marcus is going to talk about data and insight.
So as James has kind of alluded to there, he spends a lot of time with his teams very much looking at the workforce planning and what's going to be affecting all of his different bases across the EU. And that's really critical for us in terms of building an agile campaign, understanding exactly what bases we need to target with how much effort, and exactly what we need to do at the right times. Things change. It's a dynamic industry. So we've very heavily invested our efforts in digital media that is completely flexible and agile to what it needs to be, so that if James tells me, Marcus, we've got a new French carrier that's going to be operating in Bordeaux, we know that we're going to need to move budget there, and we can do it really, really quickly. In terms of diverse skills, it was a really interesting one for cabin crew, actually. We were noticing with some core hotspots that we were starting to really exhaust year after year going after the same cabin crew talent. So what we did is a lot of insight into the soft skill element of what actually makes a good cabin crew colleague. And what we found out was that a lot of these soft skills were actually really well represented in the likes of hospitality, retail, customer service, and we began to target these to broaden out our who we marketed to, and again broaden out our potential people that we could target. Now, in terms of the messaging, James noted a lot there about kind of flexing the employment proposition for the different countries, the different bases, and that's completely right. And we spent a hell of a lot of time speaking with base captains, pilots, cabin crew, base managers to understand the really intricate nuances for what it means to be a pilot in Germany, what it means to be a cabin crew in France, so that we can really tailor the messaging to make sure that it resonates with that person. We're very much living in a stage now where a one-size-fits-all message just doesn't work anymore. You really need to make sure that you're being as personalized as you can be to the needs of that specific audience. And the last point on here, real-time data. So James invests all that time kind of understanding what the trends are going to be, what's going to impact, which bases need that attention. What we do our end is track absolutely everything. So from initial click to completed application, it's very much our job to understand how many completed applications we're getting, how many people we're driving to the site, so that we can feed that into the team and work really closely to understand how these holding pools are filling up and where we need to move budget to next to focus on the next thing. Next slide. And working in this really agile way, we've seen some pretty incredible results. So we've seen a 57.5 reduction in the cost per application, because we're not just we're not just investing budget in kind of your traditional job boards where you kind of set to specific inventory. We are moving budget to where it needs to be. We've seen 181 increase in applications from media activity. The sessions in terms of pilots and cabin crew have increased greatly because people really want to find out about what it's like to work at easyJet. Hundreds of thousands of clicks to apply on the career site, and that's critical for us in a space where we really do have to attract thousands upon thousands of candidates. And also, as you can see from that final stat, just the amount of which collectively easyJet and SMRS have been able to increase the amount of applications year on year to make sure that they're continually meeting the needs of an ever-growing company. I'm going to go back over to you, Andres.
Super. So we've spent a lot of time talking to people at easyJet about why they work at easyJet, because we thought that would be really useful information to use to build our employer brand on it. So I want to do a very quick exercise. I'd like you to write on a blank piece of paper in front of you why you work at the organization you work for instead of somewhere else. Just one sentence. Why do you work for the organization that you work for? On a piece of paper in front of you. Make sure it's a fresh piece of paper, and you'll find out why. Okay, I'm now going to give you 35 seconds to make that piece of paper into an airplane, a paper airplane. Okay? You've got 35 seconds. I'm timing you. Ready? Go. Right. The next thing I want you to do is pick a target. Exactly. It can be me. Someone you love, somebody you don't love, somebody you want to say thank you to, somebody you know, somebody you don't know. Okay, now everybody hold your planes above your head. And when I say fly, release. Okay? 3, 2, 1, fly. Woo! Okay, everybody grab a plane. Grab a plane. Okay. Okay, really quickly then. Teresa, what does yours say?
Autonomy and flexibility within the job.
Autonomy and flexibility. Someone on this table.
I trust and like the people I work with.
Trust and like the people I work with. Okay, this table.
Leaders in their field.
Leaders in their field. Okay.
I can do precisely what I want to do.
I can do precisely what I want to do. That sounds all right. Work for yourself, maybe. How about here?
It says autonomy here.
Autonomy. Okay. How about this table?
Not for profit.
Not for profit. Okay. This table? The people. Okay, I'm not going to go around every table, but one thing that's definitely always a theme, every time you ask people why they work, where they work, is the people. So what we did is we spent a lot of time talking to the people at easyJet to try and find out why it was that they worked here. And actually, the majority of the people said it's the people and it's the culture. So we spent some more time trying to create a distillation of what that was to build all of our attraction on, and to build all of our leadership competencies on, and to build our ways of working on. So we came up with 5 themes. So I'm going to go through these again quite quickly because I did promise I was going to be brief. So the first one is Spirit of the Generation, and that is about the fact that 23 years ago, easyJet reinvented air travel. And that's something which has stayed as an entrepreneurial theme throughout. But for each of these 5 themes, there's not much point in having like a distillation of your culture unless you can be really clear about what it is that a candidate will get from your organization and what they're expected to give to your organization. So in terms of the gets and the gives, in terms of for the Spirit of the Generation, the give, we expect people to be outspoken. We expect people to be purposeful. We expect people to be engaging. In terms of what they get from that, they get fun. They get success. They get space. Lean, not mean. That's another interesting one because we are a low-cost carrier, so the temptation would be, to try and be penny pinching. But actually, our version of that is, yeah, we are lean. We do have to be very careful around costs, but we're not mean. We're not environmentally conscious. We have a good, clear corporate social responsibility. We're clear about our values. And in terms of lean, not mean, the gives are we expect people to be creative. We expect people to be entrepreneurial. We expect people to be diligent and careful stewards of the money that customers give us. But what they can get, they get participation, they get meritocracy, and they get respect. Freedom in a framework, that's another interesting one. Essentially, we are quite a governed industry. It's okay to say to your employees, you can pretty much do what you like, but if the pilot flies the plane upside down, there's going to be trouble. So it's okay to say freedom, it has to be within a framework. So what we expect the candidates to give and what we expect employees to give is we expect them to be dedicated, we expect them to be passionate, we expect them to be inclusive, but what they can get, of course, is that sense of empowerment, that sense of autonomy. Developing orange years, this is something which makes everybody at easyJet kind of go, huh. Because actually, working for a low-cost carrier is quite interesting. There's always a strike somewhere, usually in France. There's storms, things happen, but when they do, we expect people to face into them. We expect people to be problem-solving and making a success of it. So that's developing in orange years. Essentially, what you get in return is the fact that because you've had to work so hard, and because you've had to deal with so many problems, and because you have to be operationally efficient, you develop really, really quickly. There's nobody in easyJet who I can look at and say, they're not doing a real job. They're just kind of turning up and pushing paper from one side to the other. Everyone's really, really busy, and they've got real autonomy and real responsibility. So in terms of developing in orange years, the give that we expect from people is that we do expect them to be hardworking, and we're honest about that. We do expect them to be inventive. We do expect them to be involved and rolling up their sleeves. But in terms of what they get from that, they get that development, they get that training, they get that autonomy. My favorite one is the last one. No one stands on status. I'm a good old-fashioned egalitarian. I'm someone who, the word authentic came up quite a few times from Kevin and from different people. I do believe that you should be judged on what you've done. It should be a meritocracy. And there shouldn't necessarily be X or Y has to be agreed with because X or Y is very, very senior. No one really stands on status at easyJet. The CEO sits open plan, as do the rest of the board. I think there's about 3 executive assistants in the whole business. So I think that's a good thing. And in terms of what we expect people to give, we expect people to be humble. We expect people to be open. We expect people to be approachable. And in terms of what they get authentic feedback. They get camaraderie and they get fun. So I think, we spend a lot of our time at work, so you might as well enjoy yourself. So we've distilled all these down into a number of different things, but I'm going to give you an example of a video that we've produced that gives you an idea about some of our culture.
We're here
to make travel
Easy and affordable for everyone.
That means
finding new ways of doing things
for our customers
It's about big ideas.
and looking at doing things differently.
There's one thing we all have in common.
And that's our orange spirit.
orange spirit.
That's the orange spirit.
We are big on personality
And we get things done.
We get things done. The day-to-day can be unpredictable.
but we love a challenge.
We love a challenge.
We're one team.
And we pulled
Together.
And we have fun.
We have fun along the way. We can all make a difference.
So I think as James very, very lovely articulated there, easyJet's orange spirit, it's something that's so well embedded within the company. Everyone knows about it. Everyone talks about kind of growing in orange years. What our job was to distill that for the external audience. And I think Kevin hit upon it earlier. Social media is just growing and growing and growing in terms of a channel that's just crucial for today's attraction strategies, but also for your brand as well. So our focus very much with externalizing this was specifically on Facebook and Glassdoor. So with Facebook, we did a lot of insight, a lot of research to understand the types of posts, the types of content that people were engaging with, to be able to basically build up a schedule of paid activity to go out and reach our core audiences, be it cabin crew, be it pilots, with content that they wanted to see. We took loads of rich content from the website, so the cabin crew quiz and Are You Right For It, and made sure that we got that out to the audience. When we started this project, we called it kind of social amplification project. easyJet's careers Facebook page was at about 1,200 followers. By the time we'd finished, we'd grown to just under 15,000. And, you know, we talk a lot about talent pools today and all of its different vices, but what we've done there is actually generate a talent pool of engaged users that want to find out more about easyJet's jobs, but also their culture, and it's a pool that we can continuously tap into to be able to communicate when we need to. And really interestingly, actually, and it's come up a couple of times today, when you talk about the power of brand, strong employer brand, our core goals for Facebook were to grow followers and to get engagements. And we did that as a complete aside. Within a few weeks of activity, we also generated over 400 completed applications for cabin crew with no recruitment message attached to it whatsoever. So I think that's really nice, and it shows the power that a strong brand can have if you invest in it and get it out to the right places on your general attraction needs. Now, Glassdoor as well, people are going to have different opinions on Glassdoor, but we are living in a world where people want peer-to-peer conversations, they want openness, they want transparency. And what we found with easyJet was that they were regularly getting over 10,000 visitors to their Glassdoor site every month, especially from cabin crew and especially from pilots. So it became a pretty clear decision for us to invest in this channel, make sure that it had all the relevant content in terms of employer brand, but also spaces for pilots, for cabin crew, to get more information. And what we were able to do is grow the amount of monthly visits to over 30,000. We even hit 60,000 when there was quite a bit of uncertainty around last September. You may have seen Monarch in the news and Airblin and stuff like that. So people in a time of uncertainty were coming in their drones to Glassdoor, to easyJet, to understand, I've got to find another job. Where do I want to work? What's it going to be like? And by being able to give easyJet that space to clearly articulate that, we could then capture these people and show them why easyJet was such a great place to work. And I think another source of pride, I think internally for you guys as well, James, is that being ranked in terms of one of the best employers to work for 2 years in a row, I think is something that you guys are really proud of. And I will pass you back on to James there to talk about the slide that just came up.
Yeah, no, we're very proud of that, and increasingly, the good thing about Glassdoor and the good thing about a lot of the social media activity that goes on is that it's no longer about a very carefully crafted marketing message which you push out. It's no longer about, you know, selecting very particular stories and then pushing them out. It's a complete dialogue. It goes both ways, and I think that one thing that we've learned from a lot of the social media stuff that we've done is that the way in which you respond and actually responding is as important as the content that you push out. It's really, really important. The final thing I want to talk about is our Amy Johnston initiative. Question for you, what do you think, as a proportion, the number of female pilots is in the world? Do you think it's 20%? No. 2%. It's 3. Pretty close. Pretty close. You get a Mars bar. Yeah. It's 3%. So back in 2015, Chief Executive challenged me and the recruitment team to try and increase that. First year we got to 6%. And he said, can we do better than that? So then we doubled it in the second year to 13%. And then he set a big, hairy, ambitious target, which is for us to get to 20% of our new entrant pilots to be female by 2020. I think just because there's 3 20s in it, rather than because it's in any way achievable. So I just really want to talk very briefly about how we've done that. So one of the things that we did is try to get them as young as possible. So I think that people make their decisions about their degree of inspiration very young. So we've been doing a massive amount of school visits. The second is role models. And we've had many different role models, female captains, female pilots, going out and about into the media. You may have seen that we had a documentary on ITV called easyJet Inside the Cockpit, which focused on some of our female pilots who are coming through our training. It's really, really, really fascinating. And I think the other interesting thing was that we had some quite landmark things which happened, which were very useful to us. So, for example, we had the youngest commercial female pilot in the world working for us. How old do you think she was? She was 19. She's 19. And when I think about what I was like as a driver when I was 19, it kind of does beggars belief. So that's a little bit about how we've achieved it. Obviously, the usual marketing. But I think the other thing to mention is there is a wider question about why should we be doing this. Obviously, gender pay gaps. Everyone's talking about gender pay gaps. That's really important. Obviously, with a limited supply of pilots, having more people become pilots, an untapped resource of people becoming pilots, is important. But I think more important than all of that, actually, is that it's the right thing to do. If you think about the many other industries that have been male-dominated traditionally, the aviation industry is miles behind on that. And for what reason? No one really knows, other than that perhaps it's role models. Perhaps it's just that people have always just looked at those stereotypes and not thought about them. One of the things that we've done also is to rewrite the manual, literally rewrite the manual. So EASA, the people who govern the way that you fly a plane and the rules around you fly a plane, they wrote a manual, and every time it refers to a pilot, it says he. It's just bonkers. So we're campaigning hard to get that rewritten, and it's being rewritten. So it's the right thing to do overall. So Mark is just going to finish off.
So one of the most recent initiatives that we've taken to really kind of bring this to the fore was creating a Becoming a Pilot microsite, and we actually launched this in line with International Women's Day. So very much as James was saying, kind of get them early, all the schools that they've been visiting with the different pilots like Marnie, like Kate, who James was alluded to there, giving them a source of information that they can go on and see these role models and see these stories played out. I think what's also really important is there are targets here, but in terms of the externalization of that, we don't at all say we're looking for women. That's not the message that should be given here. It's about creating an environment that's open and inclusive for everyone. So we don't draw out specific targets. We just say, if you're the right person with the right skills, we don't care where you come from, come and talk to us, come and be a pilot because you are able. That's a really strong message. And again, social media playing a key part in this, very much supporting the launch of the site, making sure that we marketed it out to all relevant and interested people. But social media, again, has been such a great platform to have those open conversations about the gender pay gap, which I think easyJet was actually very brave in publishing their report and their CEO's response to that. Also talking about different initiatives as well, and also giving everyone who wants to find out more a real hub for information on this on the career site. So creating a new section that has all these different bits of information that we can direct people back to give people more information, but also facilitate that conversation. And it's very much a continuing piece of work that we're very much enjoying at the minute.